This video is intended for teachers to highlight the lesson in Unit 4, Day 10, which focuses on the significance of outside influences in the European Renaissance, especially influences of Africa. Not only does this understanding serve to provide students with a fuller, more nuanced picture of the Renaissance, it can also provide entry points for more students to see themselves represented in the content. Students will be asked to analyze a text set, including primary and secondary sources, and evaluate the extent to which innovations developed outside of Europe influenced the historical changes associated with the European Renaissance. Additionally, in doing so, students build on their prior knowledge about the importance of studying developments in global history through a trans-regional lens. Students will have an opportunity to use the structured historical paragraph tool for 2 evidentiary examples. The guiding question is, to what extent was the European Renaissance a global event? With the lesson objective 2, examine how innovations developed outside of Europe influenced the historical changes associated with the Renaissance. As you ask students to activate prior knowledge by quickly listing the top 3 changes associated with the Renaissance, you may want to have them warm up their writing in the virtual classroom by posting their responses in the chat. Decide if you want them to post as a direct message to the teacher or as a message for everyone. Set a timer for this warm-up and ask students to post their lists in the chat after the timer has gone off. Ask 2 to 3 students to share their lists with the class by unmuting their microphones and reading what they have posted in the chat. You may want to warm call on students to unmute who had strong responses to share with the entire class. Just remember that it is more nerve-wracking for students to share using their microphones in the virtual classroom than to speak in an in-person classroom for many students. On this next slide, as you ask students to think back to the early discussion of globalization, you will want to decide if you'd like to have the students answer the 2 questions at the bottom in the chat, to record their responses on copies of the online materials that you've provided for them in Google Classroom, or in small groups in breakout rooms. These questions would work well to warm students up in breakout rooms to discuss with one another, and groups of 3 to 4 students are recommended to encourage more student participation.